The value of skepticism to philosophy seems to wax and wane throughout history. Socrates is often thought of as the original skeptic, a philosopher from ancient Greek who we have no recorded writings of. He is famously quoted by others as saying, "The only thing that he knows is that he knows nothing." And the Socratic dialogue, which he is known for, is only useful for finding contradictions in already existing beliefs rather than forming new beliefs. Socrates was ultimately executed for his beliefs under the conviction of quote unquote corrupting the youth. As the years would go on, an entire school of philosophy was created called Skepticism, based off of his famous quote. In recent history, skepticism has seen a great raising of value in the early 2000s from the new atheist movement. People like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Matt Dillahunty, and others swept the Western world with beliefs that religion was a terrible thing and an enemy to science, that science and skepticism ought to reign supreme. Chris Avellone is a guy who's been in the games industry for a long time. With credits as far back as Fallout 1 in 1997, Avellone has had a hand in many of the greatest narrative-focused games from the late 90s to the 2010s. Part of what has made Avallone's writing style so influential, I believe, is his focus on similar topics of skepticism, which were extremely relevant at these times and are still very relevant today. In this video, I'll be looking at Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas' Lonesome Road DLC, as well as Planescape Torment. Avellone was the lead writer and driving force behind all of these projects, and similar themes run throughout each of them. I think the best way to get a good picture of what each of these are trying to say is to look at them together. Each of these games has a very important character we need to focus on. Each of these characters, these specific ones, play the role of the skeptic, questioning and critiquing whatever ideology you follow. In Knights of the Old Republic 2, this character is Kreia. On Korriban, the ancient Sith world, our character has a vision of Kreia, which I think summarizes her ideology as well as Avallone's. Apathy is death, she says. She repeats over and over again through this vision. To explain what this means, let's look at her character some more. Kreia was a Jedi Master before falling and becoming a Sith Lord. She's experienced in the dark side and the light, and saw both as inadequate. She's become a skeptic, and this skepticism has led her to a sort of centrism. But when one can't have faith in any belief, when you expose the flaws of the Force, when you see the problems in the light and the dark, and believe that all they do is foster never-ending conflict, how can you not become apathetic? How can you not stop caring about the galaxy? Stop caring about what ought to be and what ought not be, what should be and what shouldn't be, or whether justice or tyranny rules the galaxy? Kreia's answer is to make the Force itself her enemy. She gives herself the mission of defeating fate so the galaxy can be free. If life is a constant battle between the just and the tyrants, only by defeating justice and tyranny can the galaxy be saved from this conflict. She's more than just a relativist. She's a centrist who's made it her goal to defeat ideology itself, without realizing that this is in itself an ideology, and even a self-destroying one. What will Kreia do once the Force is destroyed? Once the light side and the dark side are ended? Without these beliefs, or the hatred of them both, what are we left with but apathy? While Kreia constantly critiques our light or dark side decisions, KOTOR 2 still uses the light and dark meters, and makes many of its choices binary light side, dark side choices. Playing a neutral character is really just picking the light sometimes and the dark other times. It's a wishy-washy character who doesn't hold any strong beliefs. Kreia is not this. She believes fate, the will of the Force, the endless universal conflict of dark and light. These are the creators of apathy. But she fails to recognize the contradiction in her own belief, that without the hatred she has for fate and the Force, she is left with nothing but apathy for herself. She does a great job as an antagonist. In KOTOR 2, your greatest enemy isn't the opposite ideology. Your greatest enemy is skepticism and critique. Because while these things are extremely valuable, they are also what fuels apathy. In Fallout New Vegas' final DLC, The Lonesome Road, our antagonist is Ulysses. Obviously, this DLC was the writing was and creation was led by Chris Avellone. This DLC and Ulysses himself are the final conflict the courier has to face before we fight our chosen faction in the second battle of Hoover Dam. Much of the same way as Kreia, Ulysses acts as a critic and a skeptic, forcing us to analyze and question our beliefs and the path we've taken up to this point. Ulysses was once a member of Caesar's Legion, who became disheartened by the faction and its failures. But he saw the flaws of House and the NCR as well. So where could he go? What could he do? At this point, he became a courier, wandering down roads of apathy, only caring about the money he would make. Until he found the Divide, a community he became a part of. He learned to care about and believe in it. But that all came crashing down when you showed up. Before the events of the game, we're told our character delivered a package that carried a device that would destroy the Divide. Our character didn't know what we were carrying. We were just doing a job. While some players may be angry that the game would saddle them with a previous fate, a previous event that happened, whether the player likes it or not, this is exactly how Ulysses felt when that bomb destroyed his city. After everything he did, all the right choices, leaving the wrong places and joining a good community, it all gets destroyed, and the man who did it doesn't even know it. Now, Ulysses has no flag, no symbol, no people. He is once again a courier, a wanderer, homeless. This drives him to the same path as Kreia. He tried being apathetic before the Divide, but now all he wants is to destroy the symbols and flags that wouldn't allow the Divide to live. He wants you to listen and watch as he unravels your faction's beliefs and finally launches a nuke to destroy them for good, just as you destroyed his home, his people, his symbol. It's a test of your will and drive to put your faction in power, to enact your beliefs upon the world. At every turn, he's trying to make you apathetic. Go home, courier, he says. He makes you question your choices and beliefs in the hopes you'll stop caring. Probably the best, most intimate, and personal version of this skeptic character that Chris Avellone seems to really enjoy writing comes from Planescape Torment. The Planescape setting within Dungeons & Dragons is formed from ideology itself, the beliefs of its inhabitants and the beliefs of the inhabitants of the world, from the landscape of the planes as well as its denizens, are all formed and changed and altered purely by belief and ideology. Our character in Planescape Torment is the Nameless One, a man who's lived again and again, someone who has been around for countless years, someone who discovered the key to immortality. The Nameless One is far too old to be sorted into any of the planes. Lawful good, chaotic evil, wherever you want to put him, he's just too great and too mixed of a character. He's lived too many lives to fit neatly into any of these categories. Whereas Kreia was disheartened by the binary light side, dark side, and Ulysses by the different governments taking over the wasteland, the Nameless One has become completely detached from even the broad spectrum of beliefs represented in D&D's alignment system. He isn't sadistic, but he isn't altruistic. He isn't lawful, but he isn't chaotic. But he also hasn't been drained into the apathy of a pure neutral character. Instead, he is fueled by the need to be immortal. So instead of an outside force, we are driven by previous versions of ourselves. The irony of the Nameless One is the same as Ulysses and Kreia, and his attempt to grow beyond ideology, to become free of the fate of life and death. He has become trapped in a different fate, a path created for his own desire for freedom. To me, the most satisfying ending of Planescape Torment is the one that sees the Nameless One learning his true name, and then finally, after so long, accepting his death. Only by exploring himself, by discovering the truth about who he is and what he's done. After discovering his true name, his true form, can he finally accept that his fate is to die, to join the planes, and become one with its cycle instead of fighting against it. It is an apathy that leads the Nameless One to accept death. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have explored his past. He wouldn't have discovered his true name. Instead, apathy would have left him in limbo, purgatory, an immortal without any purpose or place in the grand scheme of the world. Jesus says to be in the world but not of it, but Chris Avellone shows us that if we don't accept that we are of the world, we end up fighting against the world, against purpose and meaning, and eventually end up in an apathetic purgatory. I think this exploration of Avellone's work shows us that skepticism is extremely valuable at pulling back all of the things that could be wrong with your beliefs. It is a way of testing your own beliefs to see what holds up. But at the same time, if your entire beliefs or ideology is consumed by skepticism, then you will be consumed by apathy. Slowly, you will stop caring. And as Kreia tells us, apathy is death. Thanks for watching.